Hey guys, Carl W Design, and today I'd like to show a quick step-by-step how to make this kind of cool S spirally shape that I used on top of this sort of sci-fi hourglass. I made this a couple of years ago, and I wanted to make this kind of design because I saw it in a furniture catalog, and I had trouble trying to come up with how to do it at first, so I want to quickly demonstrate. In general, in anything really these days, you can post on internet forums and ask for help. Here was me posting back in 2017. Some people offered some help. This guy Dudecon came up with a way to do it by hand, nice and simple, using semicircles. And honestly, I didn't even realize it was a semicircle design. At first, I was sort of trying to do it as an S-shape curve like that. Okay, and he showed me nice and simple. He attached the file, and it was quite easy in the end. So let's get started. I'll show you how you can do it. I'm going to start with the default cube. No, actually, let's get rid of it. I'll do a plane. Okay, tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to, if we just set our snapping to increment like usual, I will just, from the top view, snap that over like that. And then we really just want this one edge. So I am going to Control I to select all the other edges, and we will X and delete those edges. So we end up with just one edge, just like that. Okay, let's go to the front view. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate, hold Control, and we'll snap it up like 2 squares like that. And then Shift R, lots of repeats of that process. Okay, we'll do about that many for this tutorial because it is a hand process. You need to manually do this. It'll take a moment when we get to it. Okay, so we can tab back to object mode. I'm going to Shift A and make a mesh, a circle. I will change this to a good, decent resolution, 128. Okay, and then we can tab into edit mode, RX90 to flip that up like that. And I will just scale it down a lot. So we want it to be sort of like approximately the size of the gap between these in the array. Okay, so something like that. Maybe a little bigger than that gap. Okay, I'm going to go into I'm going to go into edit mode like this. Nope. Okay, select it and edit mode. There we are. Select all. A to select all. And I'm just going to G, Z and move that up so it's something like that. Okay, that's good. Back to object mode. I want to select this and just drag it over so it is like that. Okay, so what we can do now is we just want a semicircle. So if I go into vertice selection mode, I'm just going to delete the right hand side, just like that. Okay, and now we can start to talk about making duplicates of this and snapping them to the array. Okay, so for that we need to turn on snapping, and we want vertex snapping. We want it to also be on the scaling command. That's how we're going to do it. So this one I will just scale and it will snap to there. I will Shift D to duplicate. I will S for scale and I'll snap to there. Okay, and so we have to do this manually for each one, but it's sort of a nice process and you could be listening to music and relaxing. It should be problem free. They should just snap nicely to these vertices. Okay, so I'll just do, how many more? Yeah, I'll just finish this off. It won't take long. Shift D, S, and snap. Okay, and now actually we can turn off snapping, so you can either push that button or Shift Tab will do that. And we really don't need this anymore. I'm going to delete it. And I will select all these and I will Shift D and I'll just right click, they can go back in place, and then I will RZ180 to flip it over. So in itself that's kind of a cool design, but I think there are easier ways to make that. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that this way. But what we can do now is X180, and then if we Shift Tab and turn back on our snapping, we can snap that up the top. Okay, so we're very close. Now we have this issue where they're not lining up, and for that we can just select each one S and scale it so that it lines up. And if we go through and do all of them, then we should have our finished design. Let's do these very quickly. And what we're going to do after this is we'll actually convert the whole thing to a curve. Okay, I'm just going to finish that one. And yeah, we'll do these last ones as well. No, that's not a good idea. Okay, so the design sort of depends on the scale you start with. So depending what scale the semicircle is in the beginning, you may end up with like one or two semicircles which sort of don't have a matching other side or matching pair. So that's okay, it still looks pretty cool. Okay, so let's select all of them, and we can Control J as in join, and that will join them all into one object like that. And then we can just go to Object, Convert to Curve. Okay, so now that is a curve, we can go to our curve settings here. I'm going to change the fill mode to full. So if we give it some geometry, I'm just going to give it a little bevel, and the bevel is too large for the sort of result I had in the beginning to make this sort of thing. But maybe, you know, this looks pretty cool. Maybe that's what you're after. You could play around with that, and if so, I would suggest that you would be going in and maybe turn it back into geometry and merge some vertices and things, clean it up a bit. But if you want to go for the sort of result I had, we need to make this bevel a little smaller. Let's put in another 0 so we get that sort of thing. You could play around with that size and get it more precise, and then perhaps a little bit more resolution to make these a bit smoother. And if we just deselect, and I'm going to turn off overlays, we can sort of get a better look at what we have. I think it looks pretty good. You could go in and talk about, actually I want to just make this a little bit smaller size bevel. I think actually looks like I've made an error and I may have missed one. I think there was supposed to be one in here perhaps, but anyway, it looks pretty cool. Now if we want to make a nice render, we can go into Eevee settings. I mean, we'll give this guy like one of my default luminous colors. This is just a if we go into the object settings, it's just an emission shader. Okay, and then let's go to the world settings. I'm going to disconnect any HDR, and we'll just do a simple dark gray background, and let's render. I'm just going to go, I don't know why this latest Blender 2.8 is very slow to start rendering. Just go to a front camera and I'll drag this guy down a bit, maybe scale it down. And you could put in a beautiful background and all sorts of things. And one thing I'd recommend is to play around with bloom. Bloom is a nice effect in Eevee. Okay, you could also render this in cycles and get into all sorts of cool stuff. You could make an animation, it could spin, you could have motion blur. You could have various colors, you could have multiple of these things in a large array. You could include it in a design like I did for a cool sci-fi kind of prop. Okay, so I believe that is all I wanted to show today. Thank you guys for watching, I appreciate it. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks a lot guys, until next time, bye bye.